On this edition of USN Interviews, we are joined by Mark Milne, who has created a new way of scoring and accelerated gameplay in the sport of tennis.
Hello there, Frank. Yeah, good to speak to you. It's Mark Milne here. I am from a small town in Scotland, in the northeast of Scotland, not actually too far away from where Andy Murray's hometown is.
Okay.
He comes from Dunblane in Scotland, which is about an hour's drive from where I am in Arbroath. And yeah, I've come up with this tennis idea that I think could be quite exciting and so on. It's a shorter format that produces shorter, faster moving matches. It basically came about 3 years ago. I was looking at moving to play indoors during the winter, and when you're using normal score and you only play for maybe 1 hour, it's very difficult to get a best of three sets match played. So I went through a few things trying out here and there, and I remembered that when I was younger, that the coaches had used a format that where you started a game at 30 all rather than love all, and it gave the players more experience of playing the big pressure points around about 30 all deuce and so on. So yeah, we started experimenting with it, and before long, yeah, after a few weeks, we decided, hey, this is really quite fun. We were able to complete a
On this
three-set
edition of
match
USN
within an
Interviews,
hour.
we are
It
joined by
still
Mark
felt
Milne,
like tennis,
who has
basically. We
created a
came
new
off
way
having
of
won
scoring and
6-3,
accelerated
4-6,
gameplay in the
6-2, for
sport of tennis.
example.
On this edition
So
of USN
I was
Interviews,
aware
we are
that there
joined
was
by
another
Mark Milne,
shorter
who has
format
created a
out
new
there
way
called
of
Fast
scoring and
4,
accelerated
which is
gameplay
sets
in
to
the sport of
4
tennis.
games, and they use the no ad rule. They also use a no let rule, but that's being used only sporadically just now. We had tried that, and I wasn't too keen. It just didn't feel like tennis. Winning a match 4-2, 1-4, 4-3, it just didn't feel like tennis the way I remember. You know, I've played tennis since I was a boy, so it's well over 40, 45 years I've been playing. So when I came up with this idea, I then dreamt up the name that we would call it 3030. When you write down 30 all in digits, it's 30-30. When you read that, it reads 3030. And I was very aware that cricket, it's a sport that's really quite big across the world, not in every country, but it has developed a format called 2020. And it's become very, very popular. It's an alternative to the longer 5-day test matches. So it felt right that if I called the tennis 3030, it really said what it was. Everyone would realise, oh yeah, that's the shorter format of tennis where every game starts at 30 all. And it would sit alongside 2020 cricket. So it's basically developed from there. I thought I had a good idea, so I actually got in touch with Judy Murray, asking her. I wanted this to be a Scottish invention. I want Scotland to be involved. Obviously, with Andy Murray and his brother Jamie's success, I was keen to have a Scottish influence. So yeah, I managed to get details of Judy's contact, spoke to her. She was very encouraging. I was hoping that she would maybe help me out with maybe some trialling, but she was very, very busy and still is very, very busy with a lot of things. So what she did was she put me in touch with the International Tennis Federation and said, look, why don't you contact the composition people there? They might give you an idea what's going on. So yeah, just on their website, you're able to contact them. And I was eventually put in touch with the ITF's Rules of Tennis Committee, the top guy, Stefan Fransson, a guy from Sweden. I sent him the basics of the idea and so on. He liked it. He asked if he, at the time I wanted to keep it confidential. I didn't want someone to copy my idea.
Right.
He came back to me. He asked me if it was okay to speak to another of his colleagues, but keep it quiet. And I said, yeah, no problem. So he did that and then came back and said, look, we really quite like this idea. Would you apply officially? So yeah, fair enough. I then applied officially. There is a form online on the ITF's website to amend rules of tennis. So I completed the form and so on, sent it away. And then the next thing I heard was that, yes, we're going to take it forward to our Rules of Tennis Committee meetings. We meet twice a year, and the next scheduled one was to be in Paris during the French Open in June 2017. So I thought, oh, well, that's just fine. It's moving on. There's people showing a bit of interest. So yeah, it eventually got discussed at their meeting in Paris. I heard 2 or 3 weeks later they told me that they'd obviously discussed it, but they were knocking it back, or they weren't taking it forward, because in Appendix 5 of the rules, that's the appendix that has alternative scoring methods. They already included the rules of Fast 4.
Okay.
In other words, you would play a set to 4 games, there'd be a tie break played at 3-all, there'd be no adds, and there'd be no lets. So they came back to me and said, that's the reason we're knocking you back. We've already got something. So I to and fro with them trying to explain that. I think 30-30 could be worth a shot, because my personal opinion is that it's a wee bit better than Fast 4. The fact that you still play sets to 6 games, you still have a tie break at 6-all, you still play the deuce and add points in full. These were things that I felt were lacking in Fast 4. However, they didn't give me any time of day on that. So
Right.
what I eventually told them was that I'm going to go away now, create a website, create a brand and so on. I'm going to get 30-30 trialled all over the world. And I'm going to try and get feedback based on how people have used it and how they've enjoyed it. And I will reapply in a few years' time, depending on how the feedback goes. So I'm now 2 years into the trialling of 30-30. I've got about 263, I think it is, testimonials now of people who have either said, oh yeah, this is a great idea, this really works, where we're using it and so on. And especially youngsters appear to be liking it, which is a big boost for me, because I realise all sports now struggle to try and attract, there's such a big range of sports for them
Right.
to select. And tennis is beginning to struggle a bit. You know, you read articles online that's saying that the number of people involved in tennis is dropping. In certain countries, I know in some countries it's definitely increasing. And the average age of the people involved in tennis is also increasing. So I was keen to try and get a format out there that could potentially help with that. So yeah, that's where I am, Frank. I've created a website, I've got a logo and so on, and had very encouraging feedback, basically. And at the moment, yeah, I'm looking for more and more people to try it, just either playing themselves or organising an event or even a tournament. It would have to be a fun tournament at the moment, as it's not a fully sanctioned format.
Right.
You can't hold sanctioned tournaments. It would be a fun tournament, and the shorter format helps. You can play more matches in the same court time. It gives you the chance to organise round-robin type events where instead of playing 1 or 2 long matches, you could play 4 or 5 shorter matches. It gives you the opportunity to play more opponents in the same time. And it's a faster moving format. The game score ticks along more quickly. You know, it brings to the table that Fast 4, I believe, is really just a normal set of tennis cut short. You're just playing it 4 games. But with 30-30, the game score, the whole dynamics are changed. It moves on. You know, rather than being 1-all after 10, 15 minutes, it's maybe 3-all after 10, 15 minutes. You know, my estimate is that a set, on average, it will vary, on average will take no longer than 20 minutes. So
Okay.
I've been using it indoors, best of 3. It's mainly been touch tennis I've been using it for, but you can play a best of 3 sets fully in the hour, and I've found that it's worked very, very well. Other people are now agreeing with me as well. So yeah, it's quite an exciting project. I must add that this is just a hobby of mine.
Sure.
I'm not involved in tennis in any business way at all. I don't coach, I don't do anything. I'm actually a full-time design engineer working in the oil industry. It's just I've always had racket sports in my life ever since I was a youngster. I played the tennis, I played squash, badminton, table tennis, and I have a great passion for all racket sports, and especially tennis. Tennis is the most fantastic sport to be involved in. You get so much out of it, basically. I like the singles, but the doubles is still great socially and so on. And yeah, the
Right.
30-30 format, I would like to think, could do for tennis what 2020 is doing for cricket. It's brought a totally new dimension, a whole new dynamic to the game, really. And we have seen recently tennis matches are lasting fairly significant lengths of time. They're fairly hard physically. You know, it means somebody like me can still play singles well in their 50s, knowing that the match isn't going to be a best of 3 full three-set match. It
Right.
gives you the opportunity that you could play 2 or 3 of them in a day possibly,
Well,
but using the full format, no chance.
Well, the first thing I noticed is that you hit it right on the head. And this is what we cover here. You talked about the passion of racket sports and your love for racket sports. Once we get into the passion of things, we make things a lot easier. So that's the first thing I noticed. Now, if you will, give me it seems like I don't want to say opponent, but your biggest obstacle here is that there's already something in the fast four. There's already something in line there. So let's kind of compare and contrast those two things. The first thing that I see and that I like is that you start with 30-30, a chance to go to a break point or hold a serve right away. So as you said, big points right there. And as we know from tennis, your idea is if you can break serve, that's great. But if you're playing against a great server, if one break point doesn't make a lot of difference if he's going to hold the next 3 serves. But if you start that first break, boom, you're right there. So that makes a big advantage right there. And with the fast four, like you said, just playing a normal game, you take that away. The second thing that I noticed from that is that you have the opportunity to play an entire game, an entire set. And I see where when we get to the older people, when you're playing more doubles, everyone gets a chance to serve. Explain to me how the change of ends occurs.
That's true. That's something that I haven't explained. I've obviously said the basics are that every game will start from 30-30, 30 all. But yeah, something I experimented with. When you're playing traditional tennis, obviously you play 1 game, you then change ends, and then you play 2 games before changing ends, and so on. Now, when you were playing with 30-30 game starts, I found that you were changing the ends too rapidly. 1 game could potentially just be 2 points, you change ends. 2 games could potentially just be 4 points, you change ends again. It was happening too frequently, the changing of ends. So we tried a few things, and what I eventually came up with, I think works quite well, is that I've doubled that up. So when you start a match, you both serve, first of all, before initially changing ends.
Right.
So player A will serve, followed by player B. You will then change ends, and then both players will serve twice. So you'll play 4 games before changing ends again. So after the initial change, player A will serve, player B will serve, player A will serve, player B will serve, then you change ends, and so on. So it's every 4 games. And as you've correctly said, if you're playing doubles, that works very, very well, because after the initial 2 games, it means that all 4 players on the court will actually serve their service game before changing ends again. And this has a good effect at, again, reducing the time of a match, because in a game, in a set that doesn't go to a tiebreak, there will only be a maximum of 3 change of ends. If a set does go to 6 all and you have a tiebreak, it will be 4 change of ends in a set. But that reduces by a factor of 2 the number of changes of ends played during a set. And that just makes your time on court spent more efficiently, because you're less time changing ends, walking around or toweling down or whatever.
Right.
It just cuts down the overall length of the set. And I found it works very well. I must admit, it takes a wee bit of getting used to begin with, because you're not swapping on odd games.
Right.
You actually are swapping after 2 games, after 6 games, and after 10 games.
Right.
So you could technically swap ends at 3 all and change ends at 5 all. But once you get used to it, it's very, very simple. And yeah, no, I think the feedback has been telling me that it works. They're happy doing it, sort of style. So if anyone comes up with anything better in terms of the changing of ends,
let me know.
I'm open to opinions. But I think it just ties in, and it's helped in the doubles. I really do like the idea of all 4 players serving before changing ends, and then you change ends, and then all 4 serve again. You're still serving alternatively. The rules are not changing, but the change of ends are just doubled up, and it works a lot better, I think.
Okay, now let's look at the difference between going to regular ad scoring and no ad scoring. What was your thought process in that?
Yeah, obviously fast 4, when they get to deuce, they play the sudden death point. So the next point after deuce wins the game. And that has been used in the ATP doubles for a number of years now in order to try and shorten matches. And my gut feeling is that it becomes a bit of an anticlimax when you get to a game of deuce and the next point wins. The game's over, and it's an anticlimax. One of the best things about the tennis scoring that I think the traditional method are the games that go deuce add, deuce add, deuce add. They don't happen very often, but when they do happen, they can sometimes turn out to be a very key point or a key game. Now, that is lacking in Fast Four, so that's why I still like having deuce add in the 30-30 format. You will get the odd game, yeah, that I agree that will go on 5-10 minutes sort of style, but you find they don't happen very often, but you're still retaining the elongated deuce add games. I have never really liked that. I know there's a lot of people who've played the doubles don't like the sudden death adds and so on. It's retracting away from one of the good things or one of the best things of traditional scoring. And that's what I'm trying to say about 30-30. It keeps the best bits, basically, in the fact that you still play to 6 games, lead by 2 games, you still have a tie break at 6-all, and you still play the deuce and add points. They are the best bits of traditional scoring. Sets to 4 games, sorry.
Right.
And I know the Fast Four is a very popular format now because it's obviously sanctioned, but I do know there are a lot of people not too happy about turning up to a tournament and playing matches where they're only playing to 4 games, basically.
Right.
My format, you will still play normal scoring tennis, basically. The matches will be shorter, they'll be more dynamic, but you will still play more matches in the day.
And also getting rid of or not adding the no let rule. As a player, an older aging player, that's one of those things like, oh, it hit the net. Oh, your point. That's no fun at all. Right. Now we're looking at. You're looking at the idea of, you're saying that the youth tennis is more receptive to this than maybe the seniors right now?
That was my main aim, but I also have the thought that as you get older, once you get into the over 35s, the over 40s and so on, you start playing against younger people. And obviously tennis at the top level is very physical. So as you get older, you begin to struggle playing against younger folk because a best of 3 match could last an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Right.
What this shorter format potentially does is gives the older people, when I say older, the older age groups, the opportunity to still play possibly competitive singles a lot older, up into a lot older age than they can at the moment, really. If they know that they're going to play a younger guy over 3 sets, traditional scoring, it's going to be a struggle, especially if they've got 2 matches in a day or something. But if you were playing a younger person over the 30-30 best of 3 sets format, the match is not going to be taking much more than an hour on average. You could compete at that level. So not only for the youngsters, I think it could potentially work for, well, the term is seniors, the seniors tennis, basically. It opens that opportunity for older. Maybe shouldn't be using older people. It's people who aren't
more
as young as
experienced. How's that?
That's more politically correct. I
That's
agree.
What we'll work with. Okay.
No, I
now,
feel it can work.
You say you've reached out to several different people. Now, yep, the thing that I see over in the States anyway, you've got the USTA and the PTR. Have you had any luck with reaching anyone in the teaching area of tennis here?
Yeah, both the PTR and the USTA. Yeah, I've got people that are obviously taking it on board and saying, yes, this is interesting and so on. I would have to check on my website, but amongst the testimonials, there are quite a lot of people from the USA that have taken it on board and tried it and come back and said, yes, this is a good idea, basically. So yeah, they are receptive to it. The shorter format is definitely something a lot of people are looking at. They're using the match tiebreak to 10 points as a third set decider and so on.
Okay.
The ITF have obviously realised, look, we have to create shorter formats, hence them adopting fast four. People don't have the same time. They're not willing to put the same time into spending all day or all night playing. So shorter formats are definitely something that people are looking at. And yeah, that's why I think it could possibly happen. It's not just tennis. Many sports are looking at shorter formats. So, and I still believe, okay, I'm very biased, it's better than fast four. It's better than fast four. And my goal is to prove that. Go back to the ITF. In the foreword of the ITF's rules, there is an option there that if anybody comes up with an idea for the scoring in tennis, they could take it on board to possibly trial it at certain events. And following the trialing at certain events, they can then say, right, we will adopt this or we won't adopt this sort of style. So that is my goal at the moment, to try and get a decent application put together where they can maybe take a look at it and say, well, look, we have got fast forward, but hey, this might potentially be better. It's worth a look at. He's got hundreds of people saying, yeah, this looks okay. And yeah, take it on board, trial it at some top junior events or even, older senior events sort of stuff. Just give it a go and see how it works and take it from there.
Well, one of the things that I see as an advantage, actually two of the things I see as an advantage. One, you mentioned that for the younger players and the fact that we're having problems keeping younger people in tennis, the retention is the problem, I think. And part of that, I believe, is that we focus more on just hitting balls and running around than we do on an actual craft, learning the craft. So once you've learned the craft, so to speak, now you have to be able to play. Well, that goes into the second thing that seems to be a problem, is that most of the places that I've been around, they parcel out court time in hours. So if you only have an hour to play and you end up playing a traditional 3-set match and it's 2-all in the second, you haven't even got to the third set yet, there's no resolution, and then you try and come back the next week to play, but you have to start over. Do you start at that point? How do you do it? You tend to lose the people that have, and I don't want to label all young people this way, but short attention span. So you get them out there, you play a match, you get some resolution, you get an idea, you build your ladders that way, and now you have something that actually they can work with. Now you have teachable moments as well, because now you've won a match, you've lost a match, and tennis is a great equalizer. You can't lobby your way into a position on a team if you play somebody. Well, I'm better than him. Well, did he beat you? Yes. Well, then you're not. That's the easiest way to go about things, and that's a teachable moment. To me it is anyway. So I think for the retention of the younger players, which I don't know that we have a complete drop in lower people getting started, but I know we don't retain them as much.
Yeah. So it's a very good point, Frank. Yeah, it's another big advantage I see of this format. Here in this country and all over, what I'm seeing with tennis now is that if you go along and ask a youngster if they're playing tennis, they will say yes. And what they're actually doing is they're going along to maybe a couple of hours of coaching sessions where they're just practicing sort of style. They very rarely get involved in actually playing sets of tennis. And that's where I see a big advantage of this. I would like to see kids or everyone involved playing more sets of tennis. It could just be for fun or it can be competitive. Right. This format allows you to play more sets of tennis. The reason I'm still playing now is because I'm not turning up just a coaching session where I hit a few balls. I'm turning up so I could play a 1v1 and somebody wins and somebody loses. Right. And it's great fun. So kids have to learn that they need to get into that routine of going along and winning and losing. You learn more from losing than from winning. Nowadays, I'm just not seeing enough of that, to be honest. It's very frustrating. It's become very much coaching based, and I read this and hear this from a lot of people. It needs to become a bit more, when I say competition, I just mean fun competition. Right. You get 5 or 6 of them along, they play a round robin for 2 hours, they play 5 matches each in a couple of hours, and someone goes away who's first, and they're numbered all the way down to 6. And they do that on a weekly or a monthly basis. I think that has more chance of retaining kids because it's competitive rather than just turning up for coaching and then eventually the one day they say to their mum and dad, I'm bored now, I'm not going along to the coaching anymore.
Well, one thing you just made me think of something. I'm an old basketball coach as well. And we would go to basketball shootouts, and we would play, instead of an entire game, we'd play a half or a quarter or however it worked out. And then we could play 5 or 6 different games during the course of a day against several different groups.
Yep.
And that was great. We learned something from each group each other team we would play, and we could correct and work from there. And this is the same idea, I would believe, that you could play a round robin, and you could learn something from playing player A, player B, player C, or at least get the experience of playing against player A, player B, player C, and then go from there and still get 4 or 5 matches in the course of a day without the wear and tear of the 3-set match and all that. You would still be fresh at the end of the day, or fresher at the end of the day than you would be if you're playing the normal event, and you would still get that idea of, I won a trophy, I didn't win a trophy, I learned something, I didn't learn something, but at least you would get that knowledge and that experience from playing instead of, it taking maybe a month or 2 to get to that point. So I like that idea.
Yeah,
I like that.
And potentially that helps coaches, because you get a kid who's maybe turning up and they're finishing 4th out of 5 people and they want to improve. So they'll then go back to the coach and say, right, I've played these matches, I want to improve, I want to get to 3rd, I want to get to 2nd. It's a competitive game, it's a sport, tennis. So more competition the better, basically, for everyone involved, to be honest. This turning up to coaching is very, very frustrating for me. I see it too often just at my local club, and I very rarely go around there and see any kids playing a set of tennis at all.
Right. And another way...
When I was younger, I would go and spend all day just playing set after set after set. It's
right.
how you learn. It's how you learn the game.
And
you have to play it.
And you
Same
play
with
multiple people. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, the more people you can play, the better experience you get. Absolutely, yeah.
And I can see also from a parent's point of view, driving kids back and forth, they can play, again, an entire tournament in a few hours, as opposed to it being a 2 or 3 day event. And I've got to take this one over here and that one over there. And then I got to come back again tomorrow, and I got to come back the rest of the weekend. And yeah, I like the idea of being able to do that. Here's the event. It's going to be on Saturday. You're going to get 5 matches in. Boom, boom, boom. We went through the entire ladder. We're done. So.
Yeah.
And,
I read online here that some entrants to tournaments are actually getting knocked back because they restrict the number of entries to maybe 16, because due to court time for that day, they can only accommodate 16 players. So we've actually got players, juniors, that are wanting to play competitions, and they're getting knocked back because there isn't time to accommodate them. That's crazy. We have to accommodate them all and come up with a system where they do all manage to play on the day. I can't believe that we're turning away players from competition.
Right. And multiple categories. If your club only has 6 courts, you can only fit 6 people on, or 6 events on at the same time. So if you're playing a junior event, a senior event, a singles, a mixed doubles, all that, it's kind of hard to get them all at the same time. That what could be done in a day in your format is a week in another format. So I like the idea of that. Okay, so how do we move forward from here?
Well, as I've said, the plan is through trialling to go back to the ITF in 1 year, 2 years' time. It's hard to say just now. I need more people to use it in earnest. I've got quite a number of people that have been using it just individually and saying, yeah, this is great, this really works. But I would like to have some sort of more formal, fun competitions organised by people where I could then get better feedback. They come back and say, yeah, we're 24 kids on a Saturday for 6 hours, and we played the event using a round robin followed by a knockout, and how it went, basically. How did the kids like it? How did the format work? And did the best person still win? Because that's still a very important thing. The format has to still provide a fair test. I don't want there to be any luck involved. So it's nice to know that the more talented player is still going to win, and not technically the most, the fittest person.
Right.
Tennis at the very high level, there's only a number of top guys will win a Grand Slam because they're super, super fit. The other guys are very, very talented players, but because they're not as fit, they haven't worked as hard as these other guys, they struggle. And I'd like to level the playing field a wee bit in where okay, at the top level, yes, the people who train the hardest are the fittest, deserve the rewards. But there's a lot of very, very talented people out there that are almost as good a player as the top guys, but because the way the length of the matches run, they're not really going to manage to compete. So I'm trying to level the playing field on the fitness side of things. I played a game called squash, and it was very much dominated by the very, very fit guys. They trained hard. They weren't always the technically best or the most talented, but because they were super fit, they would win. And it always annoyed me a wee bit because I knew of a lot of really very talented players, but because they weren't quite fit enough, they didn't get the success they deserved. So that's what I like about the shorter format. You will still have to be pretty fit to play a best of three, or I'm even suggesting if you want to go up a level, you can play best of 5 sets, which is like a Grand Slam fun event sort of style. Just as an aside, I've actually been speaking to the WTA. I have Steve Simon's contact,
Okay.
and I'd offered him the suggestion that seeing the top women in the world playing best of 5 sets matches would be quite unique and possibly create quite a bit of interest. So he was interested, but lacking in any sort of trialling with any of the top players. There's not a lot I can do at the moment, but seeing the top players even playing best of 5 sets matches in, I'm guessing or estimating about an hour and a half maximum would be great fun. You would turn up to a tournament as a spectator, and rather than seeing 2 matches in a session, you could potentially see 4 matches in a session.
Right.
So you're seeing twice as many players, and it's faster moving. It's just a different dynamic. So I have these dreams, Frank, but just getting off at base level at the moment, getting more people to trial it. I've got blogs and so on my website of ideas on what I think you can do in terms of a wee event and so on. I have all the sheets that show the round robin and the whatever sort of style and the format. I think a great format is just having a bunch of kids, and a match is 1 set. You play a set to 6, or if it goes to 6 all, you play the short. Some people haven't mentioned that 6 all, it's the short set tie break that's used. That is now in Appendix 5. It's what's called a 9-point tie break. You play to the first person wins 5 points. It's a maximum of 9 points. It's no longer the tie break that goes to 7 points.
I'm not a fan of that, right?
No, so it reduces the tie break to a maximum of 9 points. So just an event where you've got a round robin of juniors or seniors or adults, and they play for 2 hours on a couple of courts. Each match is 1 set. They score a point for every game they win, and the person who has the most points at the end of the 2 hours finishes first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth sort of style. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for really, to get more feedback from a bit more formal than just 2 people going along and trying it themselves a few times and then coming back to me saying, oh yeah, this is really good. I'd like a bit more formal competition.
Okay, well, what we can do from this end, periodically on these shows, and this is what I love to do, talk to people teaching pros, people that run country clubs, things of that nature. We like to talk to them. So as we talk to them about various different things, we'll kind of put this little plug in their ear and see what they come up with.
Excellent.
See what they think about
it. That's one other thing I haven't said. I know I'm saying a lot. This format is not new. As I've said, when I was a junior, the coaches at that time used 30 all game starts to help people. So I really have just taken that. A lot of people have come back to me and said, oh, we've been doing that for years. But what I have done, what is new, is I've now packaged it. I've tidied it up in terms of the change of ends, the tie break, the short set tie break, and it's now been packaged up as a possible competition format, and crucially also called it 30-30. I think any format has to have a name that people can recognise. That's one thing with Fast Four. If I was to go out to anyone in the street, Fast Four's been on the go for a number of years. If you were to ask anybody on the street what Fast Four was, it means nothing to them. Absolutely nothing. Whereas 30-30, the more it gets out there, like 2020 cricket. People understand that that's the shorter format of cricket where both teams get 20 overs to bat. Tennis, 30-30, oh yeah, that's the short format that each game starts at 30-30 basically. So yeah, it's a package. It's not technically new. A lot of people have come back and said, "Oh yeah, we've been doing that for years," but it is technically new because I've packaged it.
Packaging is key. Okay. Well, Mark, I appreciate you being on. I appreciate the information. It is something that I will help you pass the word along, because as a former coach and wanting to see younger people succeed in the game and keeping them in the game, anything we can do to create retention in players is great. And then as an older player, I won't say how old, but as an older player, anything we can do to keep us playing is great.
Yes.
Because as you know, those aches and pains keep coming up, and even though you want to play, sometimes your body won't let you play. And if you're trying to play 2-3 hours at a time, that's kind of tough. But if you can squeeze an entire match into 1 hour, you can come back the next day and play again. So, all right, thank you very much, and I appreciate the information, and we'll see what we can do to get the package out there for you.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Frank.
Thank you very much. Okay, now